Well, welcome in LSU fans to the Go 24/7 podcast. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Glen West. And folks, what a weekend to talk about. Back-to-back SEC sweeps, this time up in Norman, Oklahoma. Glenn, you and I were just talking about beforehand. The weather did not look great, and we would not want to be our dear friend Koki Riley and braving the elements of Norman, Oklahoma. But it is a lot more fun when you get to talk and you get to write about an LSU sweep, a big one, Glenn. And obviously, the headliner is the pitching. But man, this was. I don't want to say it was like LSU needed to make a statement, but Oklahoma, kind of a team that surprised a lot of people early in the season, obviously had a lot of different things, going for them. And LSU just kind of, I think, went in there and said, "Hey, yeah, we're still kind of the one of the cream of the crop in this conference, and you've got to beat us." And LSU kind of handed it to them.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty historic weekend for this pitching staff. I mean, when you talk about the three games there where they don't allow an earned run, that's the first time that's happened since 2013. That's only happened twice since 1992, and it actually happened to be just both they both happened in 2013. LSU had two series that year where they didn't allow an earned run on the mound. So when you start and you think about it from that perspective of just how impressive this last weekend was for the pitching staff. And then you get into the fact that they only had to use five guys. You had Kate Anderson rocking it through on Saturday on Thursday with a full 9 innings, 135 pitches, 91 strikes on his 135 pitches. Just a amazing level of consistency on the mound from him. And then you dial it over into the Friday Saturday games, and you've got the kind of the 1-2 punch of Anthony Ianson and Kason Evans that get you through 9 on Friday to win the series, and then Chase Shores and Zach Cowan come through on Sunday for you and get 9 innings as well. I thought it was really important that both Ianson and Shores got through 5 innings. They got into the sixth inning a little bit. I think Shores, they stopped him right at 5, but Ianson got another out in the sixth inning before they turned it over to Kason Evans, and just a masterclass performance when you talk about just how effective all of those guys were. But particularly Anderson is where we have to start. I mean, that guy was he was so impressive in that Thursday game. Just completely had Oklahoma's offense just off balance and mixing his pitches extremely well. Whether it was his fastball. I mean, his fastball was still at 92 miles an hour going into the ninth inning there, which I think is why Jay Johnson wanted to ride with him as long as he did, because he wasn't showing any signs of fatigue. And he's able to get the 15 of the last 16 batters he faced out, I think, or something like that. And just really, I thought you won't see a better pitching performance in the SEC than that this year. I mean, it's just going to be it's a really difficult league for pitchers, especially with the way offenses have been swinging the bat this year. And so for Anderson to go out there and do what he did on Thursday was just extremely impressive. And look, Ianson and Shores, it was a much of the same with them in terms of command. There were some command issues. Both of them issued 4 walks, but I thought both of them did a really nice job of navigating what it's what it's like when you have guys on base and getting out of those different jams. I think Ianson had a bases loaded situation early in his outing, was able to come back, strike out to get out of that jam. Shores had several as well. I think he had runners on first or second and third at one point in the Saturday game, and he's able to get out of that with just one run coming across, one unearned run coming across at that. I think that's something that you almost would rather see these guys be able to handle, and not just, of course you want to have a dominant pitching performance and a dominant outing, but when you do get guys on base, it's how do those guys respond? And for the first couple weeks there of SEC play, Ianson and Shores would kind of let, a massive inning kind of take place in the middle of their outings, which would, kind of disrupt and negate some of what they had done, which was good. So for them to be able to work through that adversity in their outings over the weekend here against a top 10 Oklahoma team that is probably going to drop a little bit after this, I would assume, but still very good team overall. And, I know some people after the game wanted to say, well, the conditions were not great this weekend, but look, Oklahoma had to deal with the same thing. And LSU was able to put together a really nice game offensively on Friday and did just enough offensively on Thursday and Saturday to be able to come out with those 3 wins. So you got to start with the pitching staff, of course. But, I thought LSU really did a nice job of complementing the pitching staff there in that Friday game as well.
You talked a little bit about this in your 3 up, 3 down piece, Glenn, and I thought it was really kind of on point because we've talked a lot and kind of, the pitching is what it was. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. I think I joked to someone in the press box last weekend, and probably you and I joked about this. Like, okay, someone's going to have to develop in the bullpen because you can't just throw 5 pitchers. Well, they went and did that. So this is probably as good as it's going to get. And also to kind of piggyback, Kate Anderson, you mentioned the SEC in college baseball. You might not see, and I'm serious about this, a better pitching performance across baseball in general, like even at the professional ranks. That's not something they typically do. Cade Anderson, what he did is crazy. It was really, really fun to watch. But kind of going back to what you were talking about, this offense, I know you hit on this, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this. The bottom part of this lineup, like everyone knows what the top part is. Luis Hernandez is quietly really heating up in this lineup. And I think if he was on another team, Glenn, that didn't have as much power or thunder in the lineup, he'd probably be more of a featured bat. But he's kind of sit at the back end of the lineup and he's heating up. Chris Stanfield went 500, batted 500 this weekend, had 5 RBIs. Jay Johnson talked about in the preseason and then the non-con season about what he could be for them in that role. I think he is really assimilated well. And I know we talk about it each and every single week, man, but it feels like this week, maybe the focus, and obviously the bigger names did some things, but the focus might be, hey, bottom part of the lineup, man, there is just not an easy out.
No, there's no breaks. I think that was the way I titled it there. There's just no breaks in this offense right now. And you mentioned Stanfield and Hernandez. Both of them were fantastic this weekend. I think Hernandez had 3 extra base hits, and Stanfield had a couple doubles as well. And when you get Stanfield on the bags, man, he's insanely fast. I mean, there was a hit and run that they did. I can't remember which game it was, but Stanfield was at first. Curiel comes up to bat and, puts one in, I wouldn't say shallow outfield, but they deep enough into the outfield. But Stanfield was practically rounding second base already by the time the ball was hit the ground. And so he was able to go from first to home on a RBI single, I believe, from Curiel in one of those games. And it was a big run at that point in the game. I remember writing about it, just how important that sequence was for LSU to pull off that hit and run in that tight situation. And when you have those kinds of things happening for you, we're 33 games into the season now, and going into that Saturday game, all 9 starters were batting above 300, and all 9 starters had at least 45 or 46 batting attempts too. I mean, like, these aren't just small sample sizes. And so what LSU has been able to do offensively has just been super impressive. And look, they did it on a weekend where honestly they weren't their best for 2 of those 3 games. They did just enough in those Thursday and Saturday games to be able to pull out a win. But what have we been talking about for most of the year? Okay, offensively, you're going to be really good. Can the pitching staff get you just enough to be able to pull out these series wins or series sweeps, whatever it is? This week, it was kind of the opposite. It was, okay, the offense in some really tough conditions is probably going to have some not as many opportunities to score. What can the pitching staff do in response? And it was kind of a vice versa question here. It was, how come, what kind of effort does the pitching staff need to put forward in order to carry this offense through this weekend? And so when you're able to have so much balance on your roster in terms of how these things are executed and how these weekend series go, that's just the marks of a really, really good team that's capable of making a deep run. Of course, there needs to be some improvement. There were some errors that were made defensively. I thought defensively, for the most part, they did a nice job, but some of the errors that they did have were very costly because all 4 of the runs that Oklahoma scored this past weekend were all unearned. And so, there's certainly some things to clean up there, but just really impressive though, of just how dialed in this offense has been for the most part, and how on an off weekend, where maybe they didn't have their best stuff on 2 of those games, the pitching staff was able to carry them and do it in a way that was really dominant, really unique, and something that is probably not sustainable. I mean, we're not going to ask Kate Anderson to go out there and shove 130 pitches, hopefully, for the next 7 weeks, but something that when it's asked of them, they can rise to the occasion and really execute at a high level.
And it just continues, and you kind of hinted and you talked about this. It just continues to show the versatility in the way this team can win.
Yeah.
That's the makings of a championship club, like you said. And I think that's something that was just so desperately missed last year that it probably feels, I don't want to say weird, but it just feels like it's such a 180 from last year's team,
Mm-hmm.
that just a quality about them that I think gives fans hope, and it gives, obviously, us in the media of like, okay, you get the inkling, like, these guys are having fun playing with each other. That's obvious with how they're taking it seriously, but you've seen it, Glenn. I mean, they're having fun. Like, they have fun playing the game with this group. And Jay Johnson has even said, like, this is a really fun group to coach in terms of what they're dialed in, what they want to accomplish, and how they're going about their business. Kind of to take a step back from that, because obviously this weekend was very successful. You're going to roll into Auburn next weekend, a team that just took 2 out of 3 from Alabama, which is a team that was kind of on the rise, will be obviously in Baton Rouge in 2 weeks, but you're going on the road to Auburn. You're going to face Sam Dutton, by the way, on Friday night, which will be Sam Dutton's been really
He's
good
having a
this
good
year for
year.
Auburn.
Yeah,
He's
he's
had a
playing
really
really
good
well.
year. Yeah, he's having a really good year for Auburn. Obviously, when you look around the SEC, there's some games still going on as we're recording this, I believe, here on Sunday afternoon. But Glenn, when we talk about the SEC, I say a lot of stuff on social media, people caring about rankings, and Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball talked about, hey, there's probably going to be a shakeup at the top with Tennessee. What a wild series, by the way, between Tennessee and Texas A&M. If LSU fans did not really get the chance to watch that or pay attention, crazy. No hit, shutout run rule. Like, it's a
Yeah.
wild weekend of baseball between those two teams. But A&M scores a massive series win. But that being said, Glenn, like, how much stock do you put into rankings, and how much stuff do you really kind of believe in what Jay says? Like, hey, we take care of business. We don't need to worry about that. I mean, of course, everyone likes to see the number one next to your name when the new rankings come out each week. But I mean, I think it's safe to say LSU is one of the top teams in the country when they're playing like they should be playing.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think one of the things that you just kind of have to remember here is that, we're still super early into conference play. And so there's going to be some evening out of these standings. And so, look, I'm just looking at it right now. Tennessee has 3 losses. They're in that 4th place spot. Georgia has 3 losses. I believe going into the weekend, both of those teams were ahead of LSU in the national standings. To me, I'm not really looking at where LSU is nationally right now. I'm just looking at where they are in the conference, because
Yeah.
if you're a top 3 team in the SEC, 4 team in the SEC, record wise, you're going to be hosting a regional and a super regional. Like, that's a given, and it's probably more than that. Maybe even if you're a top 5 team in the SEC, you'll be hosting a regional and super regional, which is honestly, at the end of the day, all that matters. Like, it doesn't matter if LSU's 1 or 8 by the end of the regular season, as long as they're in that top 8, national seeding range, then I think most people would be content, and most people would be pretty happy about that. So,
Yeah.
I think for me, LSU right now is 10-2. Arkansas hadn't finished up their series yet. Texas at least hadn't gone to final with their series finale yet. But at minimum, LSU is going to be the 3rd place team right now in the SEC through the first month of the year. I think that's a really good spot to be in if you're LSU. And the schedule is going to get tougher, no doubt about it. They've still got to have that gauntlet coming up here with Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, A&M. They still got to face all these teams in the coming weeks. But for them to go out there and for them to show that they can not only compete but really dominate another top 10 opponent in Oklahoma, or at least what was a top 10 opponent coming into this series, that to me is really impressive and shows that this team is legit. I mean, what have we been talking about with football, right? Show us against Clemson here on September 31st in that first week of the season that you're for real by going to Clemson and getting a big time win. I don't want to compare that game and that importance to that program to what LSU just did in Norman, but this was the most impressive series slash several wins that LSU has on their resume to this point. And so for them to go out there and do that in those weather conditions that were not ideal, for the pitching staff to respond in that way, it's just another point of data that you can take going into the rest of the season here, that LSU has the makeup of a team that can make a legitimately deep run come postseason time. But you got to be able to get through this SEC schedule, and that's really all that I think people should be looking at. As long as LSU's kind of in that upper echelon of SEC teams, doesn't matter where you're ranked or anything like that on the national scale right now.
Yeah, like you mentioned at the beginning of that thought, like if you're top 3 or 4 in the SEC, you're probably top 3 or 4 in the country. I mean,
Yeah.
you're sitting pretty in that. So,
Yeah.
taking a look ahead at that schedule, Glenn, obviously we mentioned you're at Auburn this weekend, which is going to be, like I said, you get to face Sam Dutton on Friday night, which will be a really fun one there in Auburn, a program that was not good at all last year. LSU, if you remember, had to beat them in Ole Miss over the final course of the couple weekends to really give themselves a chance heading into Hoover of getting into postseason play. They're an interesting team, have kind of been up and down, but they are coming off a big series win against Alabama, which will be very you win a rivalry series like that, and they feel good about themselves
They beat
heading into that
Vanderbilt
one.
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
They
so
beat Kentucky.
they're a
I mean,
sneaky team. They're a
yeah,
sneaky team.
they beat
So
Vanderbilt and Kentucky. I mean, they got swept by Georgia, but they've beaten Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Alabama. So that's three really good series wins on their resume already.
hey, Chris Stanfield homecoming too. Head back to
Yeah,
Auburn
how
there
about
too.
that?
So that'll be an interesting one. You take on Alabama next another Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. That's going to be the following weekend, and then Tennessee. So Glenn, I know when we talked in the preseason, right? And I mean, this is no disrespect. We had that May first weekend in May series also kind of circled on the calendar against A&M. Which who knows? As crazy, college baseball is crazy. Maybe A&M found something this weekend against Tennessee. This next 3 weekends, I know you have to take it day in, day out, and we talked about, what this team has to do in terms of taking care of business. Has this become kind of the new microcosm of like, okay, you go from, and I know we'll get trendy here with this, but College World Series favorite to just a contender. Like, if you win these next 3 series against Auburn, Alabama, and then obviously Tennessee too, I mean, I think the expectations, not just within this fan base, but nationally, you're going to start to really see, okay, that might be the team to beat in the country.
Oh, and there's no doubt. I mean, let's just play the math there. If you win these next 3 series, you're at 16 SEC wins with another month to go.
Yeah.
And what is kind of the bare minimum that teams usually need to get into the tournament out of the SEC? It's usually around that 14-15 win mark, which is what LSU was at last year. And if you're kind of in that 19 to 20 win mark, you're not only hosting a regional, but you're probably hosting a super regional too. So if you're already at 16 with 3 or 4 more series to go, that's really, really strong, and that's exactly the position you want to be in. And so, look, I think you got to take it 1 week at a time for sure, 1 game at a time for sure. But I think probably what the thing I want to see most here over the next couple weeks, and we can talk about it a little bit more. I want to see 1 or 2 of these other bullpen pitchers really catch fire. I want to see,
Yeah.
LSU be able to get to 6, 7, 8 pitchers maybe that you can rely on in an SEC series to go get you outs, because as awesome as Zach Cowan has been, as awesome as Kason Evans has been, it's just a lot to continue to ask those guys to go get you the final 12 to 14 outs of a game, week in and week out. There's going to be some slippage along the way. There's no way, at least I don't think. I mean, you can clip this now and roast me for it later, but I
And
don't
we'll
think.
gladly take that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I just don't know that you can go the next 7 weeks having to rely so heavily on just those 2 arms to help you kind of close games out. And so
Yeah.
I'm looking hard at a guy like Jaden Newt. I'm looking at Connor Ware. I'd love to see William Schmidt continue to build on the performance he had in the midweek game last week, and I think he'll probably draw that start at Nichols on Tuesday, and they'll kind of have a bullpen game after that. Maybe there's somebody else that can kind of scrape into that mix as well. But really, this is also going to come down to whenever they can get Gavin Guidry back. I mean, I mean, that
The
is just
looming cloud.
such a big, yeah, like you mentioned, a cloud over this program's head right now. Because if you can get him back in the fold, and he was pitching the way that he was leading into the season, I mean, he was not going to be a starter for LSU, I don't think, the way he was pitching, but he was definitely going to be the guy that he has been the last couple of years, which is somebody that can close important games and get important outs for you at the end of games. And he had added some velocity to his pitches over the last several months. So
Yeah.
if you can get him back in the fold, get Newt, get Ware, get Schmidt, Connor Benj, couple of these guys that you can go ask to go get situational outs, 2 outs here and there, or an inning here and there, just to kind of bridge that gap before you bring in the Cowan and the Evanses of the world. That would help immensely for this staff over the next 2 months or so before postseason play. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on kind of what you want to see from this team, from the staff, from offense? Just what do you want to see, I guess, over the next I guess couple weeks stretch that shows you that they are ready to kind of hit this postseason running.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned a little bit about this too, of the hitting in terms of they've been really good into out hitting. But like you talked about, they only hit what 265
Mm-hmm.
this weekend. So it's one of those things where was that just the cold weather? And look, it's not fun to swing a metal bat in cold weather like that. But is it where your bats can really get hot to the turn of where you are just I mean, and I guess is this nitpicking, Glenn? Like where you're just mashing the ball. Like, I mean, you're putting it on somebody early and they can't recover. I go back to that super ooper duper late game against Mississippi State in the wee hours of the morning on Sunday when they score 8 in the first. Like, can we see some games where, like, hey, it's fun to watch 2-0 games. I'm not complaining. I love old school baseball 2-0 games, but like if you start doing that and then the next day you put up a 6 spot in the first inning or through the weekend, you really just kind of jump on somebody early and you throw the first blow and you land the first blow and land the first punch. I mean, that's something where if they start to really do that in SEC play, I think for me, I'm like, okay, that to me is kind of the missing piece because we saw them do it in non-conference play. We've seen spurts. But going back to this next couple stretch of games, I mean, South Carolina has not been good this year. We know that. That's going to be kind of the final, or I guess the series finale, the final series of the season when they head to Columbia. Okay, you have an expectation of what you should do there. A&M, we really don't know. There's still talent on that team, but I don't think anybody really knows what's happening in College Station. Outside of that, you've got Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, and Arkansas. If you jump on some of those teams early, I'm not saying they're going to lay down. This is the SEC; it's a whole different ballgame. But combined with what you showed in Oklahoma or in Norman, I mean, I know what they did on Saturday, but combined with what they showed in terms of pitching, and to your point, if your bullpen does that, I think that's a real defeating mindset as an opponent. Like if you give up 4 or 5 in the first, let's say you give up another 2 in the fifth, it's 6-0. And okay, Cade Anderson's done after 6, but now a like, a guy not named Zach Cowan or Kason Evans comes in and they're on too. Like I think that just magnifies what this offense can do. And also probably what we talked about could play into both hands here. Like if the offense really starts to dominate, and I mean they're hitting very well, but if they start to put it on some teams, that's going to allow some not as stressful situations for these young arms to mature in SEC play. I mean, look, I still go back to the Texas series when they threw William Schmidt in there. I mean, you can't replicate what he had to do in Austin. Like that you can't really do that in any type of certain situational practice. But you can gradually the Mississippi State series. Okay, now coming up on Auburn, can you get them an opportunity on the road to go out there and pitch well? It's going to be interesting. I think that maybe it's kind of splitting hairs to really kind of dive into like what you really want to see. I do wholeheartedly agree. Options out of the bullpen. I think offensively, if they really start to put on some teams, would be really interesting. And then the last part, and maybe you can speak to this, is does Chase Shores can he duplicate what he was able to do in the finale against Oklahoma? Like, can he? Is this a building point or is this just a blip? And that's kind of what takes you, I think, from being a contender to the team to beat. If they can get to a spot where all 3 Saturday starters or all 3 weekend starters are just yeah, I mean they're good for 5 to 7 innings and they're going to be electric. Like if that's where this team's heading, then I think that's something too. Because I'm going to watch Shores over the next couple of weeks and feel like, okay, as you ramp up and get ready for Hoover, where is he in terms of that? Because once you get to Hoover and once you get to postseason play, I think it's not the same structure, right, as your midweek and your weekend series. So that's going to be something kind of interesting to watch how those guys are utilized down the stretch as Jay Johnson looks a little bit ahead. I know he wants to focus, like you said, on the day to day, but he and that staff they know what they need to do in order to be successful into June.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you talked about the offense and just what getting off to fast starts can do
Yeah,
for you, especially early in a weekend. Like, I mean, to your point there, if they give Anderson a 5-run cushion or a 6-run cushion or something like that, and Anderson's able to go and get you 6-7 innings, you don't have to feel the need to throw one of your best bullpen arms right there in the first game,
yeah,
which, as we saw this last weekend, is immensely important. Like, I mean, if you can save having to throw Zach Cowan on a Sunday against a team, or Kason Evans on a Saturday and then Cowan on a Sunday, like, that's the recipe for this team to have
mm-hmm.
longevity and really long-term success in the conference. So, but it just comes back to, can they get enough guys ready out of the bullpen to be able to get those final 6-9 outs, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's going to be a major question mark here over the next 2 to 3 weeks. But I really loved that point. If you didn't make it, I was going to make it, so I'm glad you did, and I can just kind of bounce off of it a little bit. But I think that offensively, that's something that you can really kind of do for and really kind of help this group as a team have some major wins and against really good teams, because
Yeah.
this is not going to be an easy stretch. This is definitely going to crank up in terms of intensity over the next month or so for LSU. I mean, they've had some really good, I think, kind of baby steps towards what they're going to face over the next couple
Yeah.
of weeks. But Tennessee's a really good team. Auburn's a really good team. They've got Arkansas is a really good team, and what they can do from on the mound year in and year out. So there's a lot that we're going to learn about this offense in particular over the next month, probably more so than what we might learn about the pitching staff, just because of the quality of arms they're going to be facing. And then for them to go out there and to do what they did, they did just enough with the Thursday night arm, or I can't remember. I'm blanking on his name. Kyson
Witherspoon.
On that
Yeah.
first night, they did just enough offensively to be able to kind of help Anderson get that nine inning shutout. But there's so much more room for potential within this offense to be even better and to continue to apply consistent pressure on these teams. And so I'll be very interested to see what that looks like over the next month or so of the season.
It's going to be fun. And then kind of a weird one, road trip here in the middle of the week. They're going to head down to Nichols because remember, that's the rescheduling of that just brutal weather day back in February that was happening around here in South Louisiana. It was not fun. They'll play that, and then obviously they'll head to Auburn this weekend. But hey, a lot better spot to be in. What is it? 30-3, the overall record for the Tigers now.
I can't remember if it's got to be one of the best starts that they've ever had in program history, which is saying something considering
with
the
this program,
great teams that they've had over the years. So yeah.
Hey, look, it's what did I don't know if you like this movie, Glenn, but Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. LSU showing that they got a little power. Now the responsibility aspect, and they're answering the call. We'll see what they do on the road this week. Four technical road games, going to Nichols and then obviously to Auburn this weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. Glenn, before we get you out of here, it is Masters Week, so it's an opportunity for people to enjoy great weather, enjoy the Masters. I wanted to let you say who you got this week, because I like your pick. I think he's trending in the right spot.
I might have to ask you to cover most of the Auburn series, because
I got a wedding on Saturday, pal, so I'm out. Yeah.
I'll do Saturday. I'll be at the spring game or a spring event on Saturday. Yeah, we'll figure something out. I'll be watching both screens
On the
for sure.
phone. There you
On
go.
the phone, yeah. But my pick is Rory. I think McIlroy is in a good spot and just won the Players, I think, a couple weeks ago. that career grand slam is right there for the taking every year at Augusta for him. We'll see if he can pull it out. What about you? What's your pick?
Okay, so I mean, obviously Scotty's up there, right? Like
Yeah,
it's Scotty Scheffler.
it's his
I
tournament
really
right now.
coming in was going with Rory. I think Rory is trending in a really good spot, like you mentioned, and maybe it's because a little biased. You and I are talking about this. Not an ad, but I will tell you, if you like golf, go watch Full Swing. Make sure you try to catch up this week as you get ready, because they talked a lot about Rory in this past season. And it kind of shed light into, I think, making him, not that he wasn't likable, but I think that it shed light into like his who he is. And I think if you're just a casual golf fan like myself, um, you really didn't know who Rory McIlroy is and who he was. It kind of put a little light in that.
So
So,
much of his
I mean,
personality has been about the whole ongoing stuff with Liv and just
yeah,
the back
yeah,
and forth nastiness that's taken. It's been very entertaining as a fan and just kind of watching from a distance, but you can tell it took a toll on him for a while there.
yes.
He's got some gray hairs coming on the side of his head right now, and I'm sure the Liv thing had a little part to do with it. But I think his game's looking really good right now.
I'll also throw out there, I'm going to butcher his name, Ludwig Aber. Is that how you say his name?
Oberg, Aberg, Aberg, something
Oberg,
like that. Yeah,
whatever it is. Yeah,
he's
he's
as
really good.
composed as a young player as you'll ever find. Yeah,
So,
he looks like a
yeah.
diehard villain, but he's very good at golf.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's the Go 24/7 Masters edition. We
Yeah,
appreciate as you're watching. Come hang out in the threads for baseball season as we're rocking and rolling along. Like Glenn mentioned, the spring event. Make sure you guys say that correctly. This upcoming weekend, and then obviously, Glenn, I will let you do this towards the end. Men's basketball, great reason to sign up. Obviously, lots of news flowing in over the past couple of days, and I think I'll say this too. By the way, Glenn has been very hesitant to get excited about what's happening inside the PMAC in terms of men's basketball. But Glenn, I will put you on the spot. You did say there's a little more pop value to the additions that Matt McMahon's making this roster compared to 365 days ago.
yeah, we'll have to do a portal
Yeah.
pod on the basketball here this week, so we can dive into it a little bit more. But like the addition so far, I mean, it's hard to argue with 5 commits, and I think there's an average commitment rating of 94.25 right now on the 24/7 Sports ranking site. So they're putting their money where their mouth is in terms of, which is what we were talking about with football
Mhm.
last year, was how much would they actually commit, and I think they've committed a lot of resources to making this team better next year. I think they have a roster that's longer and has some more shooting ability, some more defensive versatility, some more rebounding, hopefully from all positions. So I think it's a good mix so far. But you got to get to the season next year and coach them up the right way, and because this has got to be an NCAA tournament team next year. That's
Yeah.
really no way to slice it other than that.
Yeah. That's good. That's a prelude into the portal pod we'll have later this week. But additions flying. Come and join the Go 24/7 community. Myself, Glenn West, and Sunny Ship, and come hang out with us all week long and more and more. So we will catch you next time. We appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well, and all those podcast feeds. He is Glenn West. My name is Bryce Koon, and we will see you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.